A wise king renowned for his insight rode into a humble village nestled among rolling hills. The villagers, eager to honor their revered guest, poured from their homes, their faces alight with joy. They lined the dusty paths, waving and bowing, their murmurs filled with admiration for the ruler whose wisdom had spread far beyond the borders of his realm. The air buzzed with anticipation as the king, clad in simple yet regal attire, acknowledged their welcome with a serene nod. Among the crowd, one villager stepped forward, his voice cutting through the excitement. He spoke of a man in their midst, a figure known for his idleness and poverty. This man, the villager explained, spent his days lamenting his fate, cursing his circumstances, and scorning anyone who dared offer advice. His bitterness had become a shadow over the village, a reminder of what despair could wrought. Intrigued, the king requested to be led to this man's dwelling, his expression unreadable but resolute. The villagers guided the king to a ramshackle hut at the village's edge, its walls sagging under the weight of neglect. Inside, the idle man sat slumped on a worn mat, his eyes narrowed with resentment as the royal entourage approached. His face twisted into a scowl, and he muttered complaints against the heavens, blaming them for granting him a useless body while withholding the riches he believed he deserved. The king's presence, far from humbling him, only stoked his anger. He demanded gold from the king, insisting that without it, the royal visitor should leave his home at once. The king, unruffled by the man's insolence, regarded him with calm curiosity. Rather than rebuke, he offered gentle counsel, suggesting that labor could pave the path to the wealth the man craved. The words, though kind, fell on deaf ears. The idle man's frustration flared, his voice sharp with disdain for such advice. Undeterred, the king proposed an extraordinary bargain. He would grant the man a sack brimming with gold, enough to transform his life. But in exchange, the man must surrender his eyes to restore sight to a blind villager. The idle man recoiled, his anger erupting into fury. No amount of gold, he declared, could tempt him to part with his eyes. They were his, irreplaceable, the windows through which he saw the world. The king, his expression softening into a knowing smile, leaned forward. If the man's eyes were priceless, how could the rest of his body be deemed worthless? Was not every limb, every breath, a gift of equal value? The words struck the idle man like a thunderbolt. For the first time, he fell silent, his defenses crumbling. His gaze dropped to his hands, his feet, his chest rising and falling with each breath. Tears welled in his eyes, unbidden, as the truth settled into his heart. He saw, with piercing clarity, the treasure he had dismissed as useless. His body, far from being a burden, was a marvel, a vessel of potential. Overwhelmed, he sank to his knees, his sobs echoing in the quiet hut. The king, with a gesture of compassion, placed a hand on the man's shoulder, for the lesson had taken root. The idle man rose, transformed. In the days that followed, he shed his mantle of despair. He began to work, his hands finding purpose in the fields, his strength growing with each task. The villagers, once wary of his complaints, welcomed his change, their community enriched by his newfound resolve. He no longer cursed his fate or envied others' wealth. Instead, he cherished the simple gifts of his existence, the warmth of the sun, the rhythm of his heartbeat, the ability to move and create. His poverty remained, but his spirit was no longer impoverished. The king, before departing the village, observed the man's transformation from afar. His mission complete, he rode away, leaving behind a ripple of wisdom that would endure. The villagers spoke of the encounter for generations, weaving it into their stories, as a reminder of the truths the king had unveiled. The lesson was clear. People often overlook the value of what they possess, simply because it comes without cost. The body, the breath, the spark of life, these are gifts beyond measure, bestowed by nature's grace. To scorn one's own existence for lack of material wealth is to misunderstand the true wealth within. The idle man's awakening taught that labor and kindness could reshape a life, that destiny was not a chain but a canvas. Value lies not in gold or possessions, but in perception and attitude. To recognize the worth of what one already holds is to find contentment, a richness that no treasure can rival. The king's visit, brief yet profound, illuminated this truth. urging all who heard the tale to cherish their own priceless gifts and live with gratitude and purpose.